and welcome back to the NFLandU podcast. I'm your host, as always, Hayden Vassar, coming to you on a suddenly snowy December 3rd. It just started snowing at my house randomly, even though it wasn't in the forecast. But, you just got to roll with some random things like that sometimes. Week 13 just wrapped up last night, Monday night, and it was a long Week 13. It felt like it was, because we had those 3 games Thursday and kind of a lull on Friday and Saturday, and then we got some good games Sunday, and Monday night was pretty fun too. Just a quick note before we get into things: we went 8-8 in our picks this week for Week 13, so not that bad. Staying barely above the water. Just keeping it afloat, just barely. So, if we're gonna talk recaps, like we're gonna do this entire show, I see no better place to start than the game of the weekend. Let's get it. San Francisco at Baltimore, baby. So, potential Super Bowl preview, as it was all hyped up to be. Everybody talked about it for what felt like weeks. It lived up to the hype. I think we could all agree. Baltimore wins it on a 49-yard go-ahead field goal by greatest kicker ever, Justin Tucker, as time expires to give them the win. That field goal itself capped off a 6+ minute drive for the Ravens that lasted 13 plays and just helped them to bleed out the clock in the fourth quarter. That drive was able to be started because San Francisco went for it on 4th and 1, like they'd been doing all game long, and they just came up a little bit short. And it was just a case of aggressiveness biting a team in the butt. But I will say, I did love the aggressiveness in this game from both coaches. It just felt like they were going for 4th down whenever they felt like it. I think the 49ers had like 3 or 4 4th down attempts, and the Ravens had about that much too. It was just a really fun game. It sucks that, it was in, if you didn't see the game, it was in Baltimore. It felt like there was a monsoon opening up above the stadium, just a torrential downpour and rain throughout the entire game. And that impacted both teams. Lamar Jackson said after the game that a couple balls that he threw sailed on him, that where he was aiming, it didn't end up there because of the wind. And I bet Jimmy Garoppolo would be willing to say the same thing. So the wind and the rain really heavily impacted both teams, but that just ensured that we weren't going to get a high-scoring affair. It ensured we got a down, low-scoring, gritty, grinded-out type of game. And I really came away impressed in this game from both teams, in all honesty. It showed that the Ravens aren't just a one-trick pony, that they can win games without putting up bunches and bunches of points, that they can win these low-scoring, grimy games. And to the 49ers' credit, I came away from this game more impressed with the 49ers than I was going in, even though they lost. This team went into Baltimore against the best team in the NFL and showed that they can hang with them, that they can be just as good as the Ravens. Now, weather impacted the game, like I said, and it really muddled the result a little bit, in my opinion. But the 49ers are not far off from what the Ravens are, in my opinion. Those two teams really are the best two in the entire league. And we were treated to an absolute show at 1 o'clock this past Sunday. I really like the San Francisco defensive plan in this one. Their plan was simple. They just tried to keep Lamar Jackson in the pocket as much as possible. Don't let him get past you. And I think it worked to a certain extent. They were able to limit the big plays from Lamar, even though he had a really good rushing day. Lamar Jackson's final stat line: 14 of 23 in passing, 105 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 sack. But he rushed 16 times for 101 yards and a touchdown. So you can say that they limited him, but he still had a really good productive day on rushing the football. And I think that's how you have to beat this Ravens team. You have to treat them like you can't stop them. Your only hope is to slow them down. And I think that's how you're going to have to beat them. That's what the 49ers did, and it worked. They almost had them for a while. Their defensive plan worked for the most part. But I think this game showed just how elusive Lamar Jackson is. Here's a stat for you from this one. San Francisco, in this game, had a season-low 1 sack throughout the entire game. 1 sack. That just goes to testify how good that offensive line is playing and how truly elusive and hard to tackle Lamar Jackson is. I mean, my goodness, if San Francisco can't get to him and put pressure on him, I mean, who can at this point? Sweet Jesus. Um, like I said, this was an important game for Baltimore. It shows that they can, win these low down, dirty games where things aren't necessarily going their way. They could find a way to win. And this was kind of important for the NFL to show that, the Ravens aren't immortal, that they can be beaten, that they can be slowed down. Granted, it took probably the league's best defense and a literal monsoon above the stadium to all coincide in one to make it happen, but it still shows that it's technically possible to slow them down. Uh, you know what? Speaking to Lamar Jackson for a quick second, that Ravens offense, they got outgained by like 100 plus yards in this game. And so listen to this. Lamar Jackson had 105 passing yards and 101 rushing yards. So he combined for 206 total yards in this game, all right? The Ravens had about 280 total yards in the game. So, if you're not good at math, like I am, don't worry, I did it for you, and I double-checked it to make sure it was right. Lamar Jackson accounted for 72% of the Ravens' total offensive yardage in this game. That is crazy numbers, man. That's like the ultimate testament of showing you how much he does for that offense. Speaking to the 49ers offense real quick, Jimmy Garoppolo didn't have the best passing day either. 15 to 21, 165 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 sacks. But Raheem Mostert, what he did in this game, the 49ers running back, was very interesting. 19 rushes for 146 yards, which is a career high for him, and 1 rushing touchdown. It showed that Ravens defense can be beat. Now, it may take a Kyle Shanahan to, go out there and scheme some things open, but it shows that they can be beat, and that's very important. This game lived up to the hype, and it was fun for every single second of it. And you know what? If this game is a Super Bowl, if this really is the Super Bowl preview, and these two teams are playing each other the first week of February, that makes me very happy, because this game was fun. Then let's put them down in Miami with no rain at all and just let them duke it out for 4 quarters again. And I think everybody else can be happy about this. So, the Ravens, they move on to 10-2. They've won 8 straight. That's a franchise record for them. And they're feeling really, really, really good about their chances at getting a first round bye. Not just a first round bye, but a first overall seed in the playoffs. And San Francisco, they're also 10-2. But this snaps a 2-game winning streak for them, and because of, ramifications from the Monday night game that we'll get into later, that we'll really dive into later, San Francisco is no longer the number 1 seed in the playoffs right now. If the season ended right now, the San Francisco 49ers are a wild card team. And that means they'd be playing on wild card weekend. Probably against whoever the NFC East throws out. So, a lot of things to delve into, and we'll get into the whole playoff scenario when we get to Seattle a bit later. But this was a massive game, and its ramifications are just now really being looked at across the entire league. But this was a big win for the Ravens, and I gained a lot of respect for the 49ers. Once again, Baltimore wins 20-17, and we're moving on to Cleveland and Pittsburgh. Cleveland at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh wins this one 20-13. Pittsburgh improves to 7-5 on the season and is now won 2 straight. And poor little Cleveland, they fall to 5-7, and it snaps a 3-game winning streak. And it just feels like all the hope and goodwill that Cleveland was starting to build up has just now gone out of the air. It's just all gone. It's evaporated now. Steelers survive a sloppy clash in Pittsburgh as the bad Browns rear their ugly heads again. So, I was keeping an eye on this one out of the corner of my eye while I was watching 49ers Ravens. Browns jumped to an early 10-0 lead halfway through the second quarter. Devlin Duck Hodges wasn't really playing that well in the first half, and it just had the feeling of, oh wow, the Browns are about to run away with this one, aren't they? It just had that feeling that it was starting to get away from Pittsburgh. And it just felt like things were just going horrifically wrong for Pittsburgh. And But then things kind of turned because Baker Mayfield was playing well in that first half, in my opinion, until he got hurt. If you didn't see the play, Baker Mayfield is in the pocket. He throws the football on the throwing motion after the ball leaves his hand. It's his throwing hand. His throwing hand collides with, I believe it was Bud Dupree's face mask. So his hand gets all jammed up in there, and he ends up hurting his throwing hand. He leaves the game early in the first half, and Garrett Gilbert, oh God, of all people, comes in to replace him and throws 2 passes at the end of the first half. So Mayfield's hurt now. You're down a couple scores at the half, and they come out in the second half. Pittsburgh plays completely different. Devlin Duck Hodges is making throws left and right, and the Cleveland offense goes completely dead. You were up 10-0 at one point, and you blew it. You completely blew it. Here's how dead the Cleveland offense went. You ready for this? They had 96 total yards in the second half. 96. You were leading. This was a game you needed, and you put up 96 yards. Now, Baker Mayfield looked completely off in the second half. He made a lot of bad throws. I really think it's because his hand was really bothering him in this one, but the Browns just curled up and took a beating, and it's just so infuriating at how good this team can look at times that they could just flip a switch and turn into just this holistically bad, unwatchable team that they were in the second half. But turning to the Steelers for a quick second, Duck Hodges, as bad as his first half was, his second half was even better. He said it after the game that he felt like he wasn't pushing it as much, as that he could see the whole field, and he was making much better throws in the second half. And the defense for Pittsburgh played a lot better, as they were able to just push around Baker Mayfield and the rest of that Browns offense. Pittsburgh outscored Cleveland 10-3 in the second half. 10-3. That's how you lose football games, people. I know that's not big numbers, but still. It was just a very ugly, sloppy game. Thankfully, there weren't any, fights or tussles in this one. Thankfully, like the previous time these two teams played. But it was just not fun in the second half. It just really wasn't. Duck Hodges finished 14-21 for 212 yards, a touchdown, an interception, and a sack. So final numbers, okay. Not that bad. Just slightly better than what Baker finished. Because Baker went 18-32 for 196 yards, a touchdown, an interception, and 5 sacks. Like I said, that Pittsburgh defense was getting after him, and they had that game-sealing interception at the end. So it was just a lot to take in for the Browns, because they just went bad again. It's just so bad because, it felt like they were really building some momentum to be proud of after everything they've been through this season, and then they just threw it all away like it was nothing. James Washington, the Steelers wide receiver, has really come on strong these last couple weeks. He's been making some crazy catches, made a couple in this one. 4 catches, 111 yards, 1 touchdown. There's really not a whole lot to say about this game because it's kind of what we've seen all year. Steelers don't play their really best football. It's sloppy. It's not pretty. They get gritty with it, and they find a way to win late. That's what the Steelers have been all year. And for the Browns, it's offense continues to be a problem. They can't do anything right, and they lose the game because of it. It's what we've seen from them all year long, in all honesty, and it's sad. Because now we can really stop talking about the Browns at this point. It was fun to talk about them as maybe a frisky wild card team if things broke their way. Now, this was a game they absolutely needed to have, and they blew it. They blew it in a big-time moment, and that's on them. So once again, Steelers win this one 20-13, improved to 7-5, and they're feeling really good about their wild card chances right about now. And Cleveland falls to 5-7, and bad Browns are no fun to watch. Moving on to, I think it's fair to say, the upset of the weekend. Washington at Carolina. Washington wins this one 29-21, people. Washington improves to 3-9, and look out, people. They've won 2 straight. Still alive in the NFC East. I know it's not funny. It's not funny. Uh, Carolina falls to 5-7 and have lost four straight, and things are getting bad in Carolina right now. Oh boy. So the Carolina comeback falls short in this one as Washington delivers a goal line stand that will live on blooper reels for at least another couple of years, as Carolina just finds a new way to embarrass themselves. So, it was an odd game. First of all, Carolina jumps out to an early 14-0 lead in the first quarter. It's like halfway through the first quarter, they're up 14. Kyle Allen looks great. He's completed his first 8 passes, over 100 passing yards, already has a touchdown pass, and it just looks like Carolina's going to roll them. They're up double digits. This Washington team isn't good. This feels like they're going to put it in coast and just ease on into a victory. The only problem with that is the Washington football team had other plans. Other plans entirely. So from the moment Carolina goes up 14-0, from that moment on, they did not score again until the late fourth quarter, which let Washington do the unthinkable. Washington put up 29 unanswered points on the Carolina Panthers in Carolina. The Washington offense that was averaging 14 points a game. Yes, that Washington offense. And things were just god-awful for Carolina. They couldn't protect Kyle Allen. They were turning the ball over. Christian McCaffrey couldn't get going. Nothing was going right. And things were looking god-awful. At one point, they were trailing double digits to the Washington football team. To the 2-win Washington football team. I cannot stress that enough. To one of the worst teams in the NFL. And you know how they did it? You know how Washington did it? They once again exploited a terrible Carolina rush defense. Darius Geis had the best game of his young career in the NFL. 10 rushes, 129 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. Got his first regular season touchdown in this game. Rushing touchdown, I should say. He's had a passing one. So, he had 129 yards. And get this, Adrian Peterson, 99 rushing yards. So, you had two separate running backs, run for over 200 yards on this Carolina rush defense. That is terrible. They had exactly 248 rushing yards from their entire day. That's terrible. They just ran up and down this Carolina defense that had no hope of stopping them. And it's really not good because the Panthers are supposed to pride themselves on defense, especially with their head coach kind of calling the plays. It's really not a good look. So, Washington's up double digits in the fourth quarter, and you're thinking, oh, God, this is atrocious. And you're thinking, there's no way Carolina can get back into this. Well, they kind of did. They scored a late touchdown only because Washington took their foot off the gas and wasn't taking them seriously. So now all of a sudden it's 29-21, and Carolina goes for an onside kick, and they surprisingly get it. I was stunned that they got it because very few teams have gotten it this year. They get it, they drive all the way down to the goal line. They get to the 3-yard line, and they just can't punch it in. And that's been a struggle for them all season, that when they literally get to the 3-yard line in multiple games this season and can't get any points from it. In fact, it goes to 4th down on the what was it, the 3 or 5th yard line at that point, and Kyle Allen drops back to pass, and he scrambles 20 yards back, literally 20 yards back, and takes a sack to just doom any chance they had. The really sad part is Kyle Allen had a receiver wide open in the end zone to his right. I don't know if he ever saw him or not, but there was a wide open touchdown that Carolina just didn't have, that they didn't get, and their red zone struggles continue. And it wasn't, and that was just an embarrassing moment to end an embarrassing day for the Panthers. It wasn't just their defense that got pushed around, their offense got dominated by Washington. Get this, Washington only gave up 278 total yards. Oh no, I'm sorry, 2 turnovers. I can't even read my own handwriting. 2 turnovers and 7 sacks. 7 sacks. They made Christian McCaffrey a non-factor, like I said, 98 total yards. And this was about as embarrassing as a loss gets. Kyle Allen finished 27 of 46 for 278 yards, 2 touchdowns, an interception, and 7 sacks, like I mentioned. It was just a very bad loss. This is the kind of loss that gets people fired. That's how bad this loss was. It was just very bad. And speaking to that for a second, I really think Ron Rivera, the Panthers head coach, probably isn't going to be there next year. Think about how far they've fallen. They're riding a 4-game losing streak right now. Go back a month ago, 4 weeks ago. We were talking about the Panthers as a frisky wild card team that's still alive. They have some interesting things. Christian McCaffrey's fun. Kyle Allen can do enough. Their defense is okay. Now come back to now. The Panthers are a joke. Their defense can't stop anybody. Kyle Allen isn't doing too much. What has Christian McCaffrey done the last couple weeks? They have fallen so far from grace. It's not even laughable. It's sad. And, the owner made comments that they're not going to settle for mediocrity, and it sounds like Ron Rivera might be on the hot seat. A very hot seat in Carolina. So, I don't know what happens next for the Panthers, but it probably includes wholesale changes to the front office and head coaching. But speaking to the Washington football team for a second, they're still technically alive in the NFC East. They can still win the division. Yes, the 3-9 Washington football team can still win their division. If the Cowboys lose out and go 6-10, the Eagles lose every game except for the game they play against Dallas, which would make the Eagles 6-10, and Washington wins out, Washington would be the NFC East champions at 7-9. Oh my gosh, the NFC East is so bad it hurts. Once again, Washington wins it 29-21, and we're moving on to another big upset. Jets at Bengals. Bengals win this one 22-6. They got their first win, people. Snapped an 11-game losing streak, 1-11, and hey, at least they have this, At least they won a game. They're not going to be one of the worst teams in NFL history. They won a game. And the Jets fall to 4-8 and snap a 3-game winning streak. Oh, you poor Jets. So, Andy Dalton comes back into the lineup, and it turns out when you play your best quarterback, it makes the difference. Andy Dalton went 22 of 37 for 243 yards, a touchdown, and 1 sack. Became the Bengals' all-time leader in passing touchdowns in this game, so that had to feel great for him after being benched for 4 weeks. Bengals just came in and played what they've been doing all year long. I saw nothing different from the Bengals team. Well, they were a bit more productive on offense with Andy Dalton in there, but the last 3 weeks, teams have been letting the Bengals hang around, maybe because they're overlooking them and not really giving them their fair due. And that's not good. So when the Bengals had it happen to them again with the Jets, they took advantage of it. The Jets came into this game and did not take the Bengals seriously. They just half-assed it. And this is what happens when you half-ass things. You lose to a team that was 0-11. And all that goodwill you had, Jets, it's gone now. It's gone. So, Jets couldn't do anything right. They had 10 penalties for 106 yards in this game. They even had one holding penalty that happened in their own end zone, which resulted in a safety, which shows you how bad their day was. They couldn't get anything going on offense. Sam Darnold went 28 of 48 for 239 yards and 4 sacks. This usually terrible Bengals run defense shut down Le'Veon Bell again. That's very alarming. It was just a terrible, terrible day for the Jets. And you know what's really sad? The Jets became the first team in NFL history to lose to 2 teams that were 0-7 or worse in the same season. They lost to the winless Dolphins a couple weeks ago, and now they just lost to the winless Jets. Like I said, all that goodwill these last 3 weeks that the Jets had been built up, it's gone. It's completely gone now. I said that last Carolina loss is about as embarrassing as it gets. I was wrong. This is as embarrassing as it gets. You lost to the worst team in the league, and they bullied you. They blew it out. It wasn't even a competition. I can promise you. That's why we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this game, because it was very one-sided. Good for Bengals. They got a win, 22-6, like I just mentioned. And they still have the first overall pick in the draft if the draft happened tomorrow. So that's good for them. They had a 2-game lead on every other team, so they could afford this. They could afford to win a game and feel good about themselves and avoid infamy. And still, they had their cake and they're able to eat it too. Good for you, Bengals. They won a game. Good for them. And to the Jets, this is what happens when you half-ass things. We saw the Raiders and Pittsburgh do that the last couple weeks, and they were able to pull out a win. They got lucky. The Jets were not. They came in and they underestimated them. They came in expecting to roll the team and get an easy W, and that's not what happened. You got beat. You got embarrassed. Once again, Bengals win this one 22-6. Like I said, we weren't going to spend a lot of time on that game. That's how we treat blowouts here. We just don't talk about them a whole bunch. Moving on to our next one. Buccaneers at Jags. Another blowout, really. Tampa Bay wins this one 28-11. Tampa Bay improves to 5-7 and have won 2 straight. Jacksonville falls to 4-8 and has lost 4 straight. And we just talked about Carolina as a team that's probably going to make wholesale changes. It's starting to feel like the Jacksonville Jaguars might do that too. Buccaneers go off on a massive first half scoring run as Jacksonville makes a quarterback change. He's back, baby. Start of this game, the Jacksonville offense continued to just be awful to watch. In the first half, they had 3 turnovers, 1 interception, and 2 fumbles, if I remember correctly, all by Nick Foles. 91 total yards and 0 points. They were just an unwatchable mess against a terrible Tampa Bay defense. In fact, they go into the half down 25-0. Like I mentioned before, the Jaguars' defense was about average, and Jameis Winston was making them look like they were below average. You're down 25-0 at the half. Your offense is doing next to nothing. Leonard Fournette is getting nowhere because this run defense is good. And Doug Marrone, the Jags head coach, goes into the locker room and realizes his team needs a spark. Nick Foles has done jack diddly squat for you since he came back from injury. So, he does what any other coach would do. He benches Nick Foles and brings back Gardner Minshew III, our Lord and Savior. I can't even get through that with a straight face. Now, to his credit, Minshew came out and started the second half, and he was slightly better than Nick Foles. He put up 11 points, which sadly is better than Nick Foles. Very sadly. Gardner Minshew finished 16-27, 147 yards, a touchdown, 1 interception, and 2 sacks, and he only played, the second half of this football game. Speaking to Tampa Bay for a quick second, their defense played really, really well in this game. They made the Jaguars' offense one-dimensional. They took Leonard Fournette out of it, forced them to throw the football. And, as a whole, they played really good. Surprisingly, they only gave up 11 points. They got 5 sacks in this one, only gave up 1 touchdown. They had the Devin Bush... they scored a touchdown. Yeah, the Tampa Bay defense scored a touchdown in this one. Devin Bush, their rookie linebacker, had a scoop and score touchdown in this one. So Tampa Bay's defense may have had their best game of the year. Question mark. They looked good. And, for once, Jameis Winston doesn't look like the worst quarterback on the field. Granted, his fumble that he lost didn't help things, but he wasn't actively harming his team's chances to win. You know what I'm saying? That was Nick Foles' job in this one. And you know what's really sad? If only Tampa Bay had a defense like they had in this game that could, consistently get stops or turnovers or sacks constantly, maybe their record would be a bit better because, Jameis Winston has been a problem this year, but their defense has probably been what's been worst about that team. Jameis Winston finished 21 to 33 for 268 yards, 4 sacks, 1 fumble. Like I said, didn't actively hurt his team's chances to win. It was a blowout, and it should be treated like a blowout. Jacksonville is in a very dark place. It's crazy to think that, 2 years ago this team was in the AFC Championship game and was literally like 5 minutes away from going to a Super Bowl. It's crazy to think about that because they've fallen so far since then. Jacksonville announced on Monday that Gardner Minshew would be the starter going forward for the rest of the year, which is, in my opinion, the right move to make. Like I said last week, they have nothing to lose by starting him. He gives them a better chance to win, and I think we can all agree on that at this point after watching Nick Foles literally self-destruct and hinder that Jags offense for 3 weeks. Once again, Tampa Bay wins this one 28-11. And like I said, it feels like Jacksonville is one of those teams, just like the Panthers, that's going to make a lot of changes at the end of the season. Doug Marrone might be gone, and Tom Coughlin in that front office might be gone too. Keep an eye on Jacksonville as one of those teams on Black Monday that starts firing people. And we're moving on to a wild one in Miami. Philadelphia at Miami. Dolphins win this one 37-31. Pulling off the upset. Miami improves to 3-9, snaps a 2-game losing streak, and the Eagles blew a golden opportunity that was literally handed to them. Fall to 5-7 and have now lost 3 straight. So, Cowboys lose on Thanksgiving, fall to 6-6. Door opens wide for the Eagles to come in and claim the NFC East. Their next 3 games are against Miami, the Giants, Washington. All teams that are 2-9. This feels like a cakewalk to end all cakewalks, people. And the Eagles blow it. I can't believe they blew it. So, Miami completes an improbable comeback in this one as Eagles just have the worst loss of their season. So, let's paint a scenario for this one. It's kind of like the Carolina game. Eagles get up to a big score. They felt like they were in control. They were leading 28-14 halfway through the third quarter, and it just felt like they were in control. Granted, there was that trick play by Miami in the first half where the punter threw a touchdown pass to the kicker, which, by the way, was amazing, and you need to go watch the highlight of it. It was pure art, and I will be showing it to my grandchildren one day. It was that beautiful. Anyway, so Eagles are up 28-14. They're up 14 points halfway through the third quarter. This feels like perfect. Put it in coast. They're going to get to an easy win. Yada, yada, yada. It just felt like it was over. But it wasn't. You know why? Because the Miami Dolphins then scored 23 unanswered points to take the lead. Oh my gosh, I can't believe we got 2 of these games in the same day. So they scored 23 unanswered points to take the lead, and the Eagles just took their foot off the gas. They stopped trying. The Dolphins didn't stop trying. Ryan Fitzpatrick looked great in this game through 3 touchdown passes. He finished 27-39 for 365 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, 3 sacks. And Devontae Parker, the Dolphins wide receiver, was literally catching anything and everything thrown his way. 7 catches, 159 yards, 2 touchdown catches. They were going off. And I don't really know how to say this other than the Eagles looked scared in the fourth quarter. They looked scared. They looked like they didn't understand what was happening. Like they got flat out outplayed in the second half. Outcoached, outplayed. I can't believe I'm saying these words about the Miami Dolphins and Philadelphia Eagles. But that's what happened. Eagles were able to kick a field goal, if I remember correctly, late in the fourth quarter. But, that was the last their offense did. Think about that for a minute. You're up 28-14 halfway through the third quarter. That's usually a death sentence for most teams. You're not coming back from that. This is of the rare occasion where a team rallies completely and wins it. But this just feels like it's normal for the Eagles, that they just are a sloppy mess on offense that can't get anything consistently going. And their defense had no answers. I mean, my God, Ryan Fitzpatrick and this offense put up 400 yards on this defense. Like, are you kidding me, Philadelphia? You know, this was a game the Eagles needed, and they just got flat out embarrassed. Carson Wentz finished 28 of 46 for 310 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, 2 sacks. So his numbers weren't all that different from Ryan Fitzpatrick. And neither were Alshon Jeffries. You know, Alshon Jeffrey, their wide receiver, 9 catches, 137 yards, 1 touchdown. They just blew it, man. The Eagles were handed an absolute golden opportunity from the skies. They were handed a golden egg. And then they proceed to just drop it on the ground. Oh my gosh. I said on Friday that if the Eagles blew this game, that their season was done. Now, I said that not even thinking that they would lose this game. And then they do it. It's like, oh my gosh. That's just how bad the NFC East is this year. That you have a team up by double digits in the second half and they blow it to a 2-win Miami team at the time. I mean, my goodness, Philadelphia. You know, at this point, I'm ready. The NFC East does not deserve a playoff game. It doesn't. You know, take away whoever wins the NFC East. Cool. You get some hats and you get some T-shirts. You don't get to go to the postseason. Give your playoff spot to a third wild card team. That's what I'm gonna say. Give it to the Rams or something. A team that actually deserves it. Nobody in the NFC East deserves to go to the playoffs. This is a joke. Good for Miami. This is just another one that they can write off as saying that they're not quitting, that they're not actively tanking. That they're trying every week to win. They're trying their best, and it just shows that they haven't quit. That those players haven't quit on head coach Brian Flores, and that's really, really a good sign. Something to build off next year after they start drafting people left and right. But Miami wins a come-from-behind miracle, 37-31? Yep, 37-31. And the Eagles blew a golden opportunity. And we're moving on. We're actually going to stay in the NFC East for this next one. Because, as long as you're in the trash heap, you might as well enjoy it, right? Green Bay at the Giants. Green Bay wins this one 31-13. Green Bay improves to 9-3 on the year, and the Giants fall to 2-10. Have lost 8 straight. It's their worst losing streak since 2004, and things are very, very, very bad for the Giants right now. So you're looking at the scoreboard of this game, and you're thinking, wow, 31-13. This must have been a blowout from the word go. Not really, no. The Green Bay jumped out to a 14-0 lead, but the Giants clawed their way back into it. This was one of those games where weather really hampered it. It started out as rain, and then it shifted to heavy snow very quickly. It was actually a very pretty-looking game, just from a visual perspective because of all the snow falling. It was very nice. Snowy football is fun football, in my opinion. So, weather impacted it, and the Giants are keeping it low scoring. In fact, going into the fourth quarter, it was 17-14. Yeah. Oh, not 17-14. 17-13. My mistake. I was one number off. 17-13. So the blowout that the final score portrays isn't true. The problem was that the Packers were able to find a way to finish strong in this one. They outscored the Giants 14-0 in the fourth quarter to give it the final scoreline. Aaron Rodgers ends up throwing 4 touchdowns in this one, and Packers fans are feeling really good about where they are right now. They had that horrific loss to San Francisco, and now they beat up a bad team, and that's all you can ask from them. It was a tale of two quarterbacks in this one, though. You had Rodgers throwing for 4 touchdowns and, putting on a show of aerial supremacy. And then you had what the Giants quarterback did. Daniel Jones, he threw 3 interceptions. Really, really, really not good day from Daniel Jones. And at least Saquon had over 100 total yards. Saquon Barkley looked like his old self for like the first time in weeks. Poor guy. Daniel Jones' final stat line, 20 of 37 for 1 touchdown and 3 interceptions. I forgot to write the yardage down. That's my mistake. Anyway, not a good day is what I'm getting at. Aaron Rodgers, 21 of 33 for 243 yards, 4 touchdowns. Like I mentioned, it was just an aerial supremacy show from Aaron Rodgers. Allen Lazard, their wide receiver, 3 catches, 103 yards for a touchdown. They beat up a bad team, and they were able to finish strong, and that's all you can really ask from the Packers right now, is that, they just beat up the bad teams and stack wins, because right now they're the 3rd seed in the playoffs at 9-3, and are a game up on the Vikings, who lost Monday night. So this is all you can ask from the Packers right now. Just beat up these bad teams. And to the Giants now, this was a mostly empty stadium. Pure hopeless feeling from this Giants organization, and they also feel like a team that's going to be making some coaching changes here in a couple weeks. Pat Shurmur feels like he's kind of a dead man walking right now for the New York Football Giants. Once again, Packers win this one 31-13, and we're moving on to the last of our early games. Tennessee at Indy. Titans win this one 31-17. Titans improved to 7-5, have won 3 straight, and look out for the Titans now, y'all. I've been telling y'all for weeks, look out for the Titans. And Indianapolis falls to 6-6, and they've lost 2 straight. And I'm ready to put a fork in the Colts, people. So, Titans defense and special teams has a massive day and comes up big for their team as Titans find a way to get a tough divisional win. So, their defense only gave up 17 points. All right, that's really good. They also got 3 turnovers off of Jacoby Brissett. That's really good. And then the special teams for the Titans, they were able to get a blocked field goal return for a touchdown. That's really, really good for the Titans. Helps you sway things. And Derrick Henry, Titans running back, continues to just be a different kind of player in the second half of the season. This has kind of become a running trend the last 2 or 3 years where Derrick Henry is just a different kind of guy in the second half of the season, and he continues to just dominate and run over people. Final stat line, Derrick Henry, 26 carries for 149 yards, 1 touchdown. That's really, really good. That's really good. And Ryan Tannehill did just enough for the Titans. 17-22 for 182 yards, 2 touchdowns. Just enough. And you're thinking, wow, the Titans did really good on offense in this game. There is still a point of concern with them, though. And that's that they gave up 6 sacks. This offensive line is still really bad. And if they were playing a better team that could put up points, the Colts have really gone dead on offense these last couple of weeks. They were playing a better team like a Kansas City or a Houston, they would have made them pay for those 6 sacks. You know what I'm saying? But they're playing the Colts, and that doesn't matter. But this O-line is still going to be a problem going forward, is what I'm trying to say. In the first half, it was a very close game. It was a tight, I think 3 or 4 points at half, if I remember correctly. And you're thinking, it's another tight one for the Colts. It's going to be low scoring like all their games are. Well, you were wrong. As was I. You know why? Because in the second half, the Titans outscored the Colts 24-7. These Titans are good, people. I keep telling y'all this, and I don't think y'all listening. 24-7, folks. That's how you finish. That's how you finish. You blow the doors off of them on the road. That's how you finish. But speaking of the Colts for a second, I think there was a comment made by one of the broadcasters during the game. I don't remember who said it, but he said, once you get past Andrew Luck's retirement, the story of the 2019 Colts will be their horrific issues on special teams, specifically the kicking position. as Adam Vinatieri had an absolutely terrible day again for the Colts. Missed 3 field goals. He went 1 of 4 on the day for field goals. I think he made both of his extra points. But it was just another day of kicking issues throughout the entire league, and the Colts are like the poster child of kicking issues at this point. You know, he had 1 blocked return for a touchdown, and he missed 2. He left 9 points on the field. But, you know, it's really starting to feel like Adam Vinatieri's career is probably done after this year. The future first ballot Hall of Famer. But it was just a tough day for kickers around the league, especially Adam Vinatieri. It was just really, really bad to watch. And you know what? A lot of the Colts' offensive production, you know, came down to Jacoby Brissett. They got no help from their running game. They had 24 rushes for 82 total yards. So no help from the run game. So Jacoby Brissett had to do all the heavy lifting. 25 of 40 for 319 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Got sacked 3 times. It was just a bad day for the Colts. And you know what? They had a really good first half of the season. Were close in a lot of their games, and Jacoby Brissett was putting up some good numbers. Then in the second half of the season, his numbers have really dropped off. I know he missed a game or 2, but still, his numbers have really, really dropped off from a number standpoint. And I think it's more to do with the fact that everybody's hurt. You know, T.Y. Hilton's still out. Their number 1 wide receiver is Zach Pascal, for Christ's sake. So it's hard to really blame it all on Jacoby, but still, it's just not good for the Colts. And like I said when we started this portion, I'm ready to put a fork in the Colts. I'm ready to do it. They're at best the 3rd best team in the AFC South right now. It's the Texans and Titans for the division at this point. So Colts, you had a nice run. You proved some people wrong. You won 6 games. That's nothing to be ashamed of. But it's time to put a fork in you. And, you know, speaking of the Titans real quick, I like the Titans. I really like the Titans in that division. You know why? There's only, 4 weeks left in the season? They play the Texans twice. That's going to determine the division, baby. I'm really, really enjoying the Titans right now. They're fun to watch. They're a completely different team. I feel like I say that every single week, but they are fun to watch. Once again, Titans win this one 31-17 and are sitting pretty in the AFC South. All right, moving on to the first of our mid-afternoon games. Rams at Arizona. Rams win this one 34-7. Opened up a big old can of blowout on them. The Rams improved to 7-5. Feeling really good, you know. They're still alive out there in the West. And Arizona falls to 3-8-1 and have lost 5 straight. It just it's just awful. The Rams were able to turn back the clock in this one and look like the old Los Angeles Rams, the ones from like 2017 and 2018 out there, just throwing the ball around the entire yard, as the Arizona Cardinals have arguably their worst game of the season in every single area. Here's a stat for you to tell you how one-sided this game was. Jared Goff had 323 passing yards at halftime. At halftime. Now, granted, you know, the Rams offense was playing really well and they were getting guys open. It also had to do with the fact that the Cardinals' pass defense is one of the worst in the league, and guys were getting open left and right, and they just couldn't stop anybody at all. Like I said, it looked like the old Rams out there, the Rams that we used to know. In fact, this was Jared Goff's best game in weeks. I'm struggling to think of, you know, the last game I know he's had some good games this year, like the Tampa Bay game that they lost. I think he played really good in. But this was his best game in quite a while for the Rams. They have to be feeling good about themselves. At the end of the day, they allowed that the Rams got 549 total yards of offense. They had Todd Gurley looking good. He looked like his old self. Robert Woods had a big day. Tyler Higbee, their tight end, had a good day. It's just, if you were wearing a Rams uniform, you had a good day. Plain and simple. And that expanded to defense, as they were having Kyler Murray just out of sync. Kyler Murray finished his day 19 of 39, 163 yards, 1 interception. Should have been a lot more, but some penalties got in the way of that, or some overturns by the referees, and 6 sacks. 6 sacks. That's not good. The Rams defense allowed 7 points, 198 yards, 1 turnover, and 6 sacks, like I just mentioned. So like I said, if you were wearing a Rams uniform, you had a great day. If you were wearing a Cardinals uniform, your day was awful. Just awful. Jared Goff finished 32 of 43 for 424 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 sack. Todd Gurley went 19 rush attempts for 95 yards, 1 touchdown. Robert Woods, their wide receiver, 13 catches, 172 yards. Tyler Higbee, the Rams tight end, 7 catches, 107 yards, and a touchdown catch. I think that's evidence, and I circled it here in my notes, that the Cardinals still cannot guard tight ends. So there you go. This game was an absolute blowout. It was one-sided from the get-go. And like I said, this was the Cardinals' worst game all year. Just burn this tape and move on. For the Cardinals, that's my only advice. Just burn all the game tape, bury it in the backyard, move on, act like it never happened. That's all you can do. There's nothing you can glean from this game, in my opinion. It was that bad. And for the Rams, they're 7-5. They're still hanging out there in that wild card, man. They're still alive. If only the Rams would look like this more often, where their offense looks competent. It's not every week you get to play the Cardinals defense, though. Once again, Rams just win this one 34-7, and we're moving on to a stunning ending in our next game. The Chargers at Broncos. Denver wins this one 23-20. And both teams are now 4-8 at the end of this. Denver snapped a 2-game losing streak, and the Chargers are currently losing 3 straight. So, the title of this portion is called "The Chargers Find a New Painful Way to Lose a Football Game." So here's the setup. Chargers have just tied the game at 20. They just kicked a field goal. There's 13 seconds left in the game. They found a way to come back, because the Broncos can't hold on to a lead to save their lives. Broncos have the ball back now. There's 13 seconds left on the clock, like I just mentioned. They're at their own 25-yard line. Rookie second-round quarterback Drew Lock is making his first start. And, the commentators during the game are just saying, take a lead, take a knee, go into overtime and try it there. And the Broncos come out, and they're in a passing formation. And the announcers are killing them. Oh, I don't like this. You don't want to do this. This could go bad. And I'm sitting here in my bed watching the game. I'm like, no, grip it and rip it. Go for it. You ain't got nothing to lose. So Drew Lock drops back, and he just heaves it downfield. He's going for Cortland Sutton, their best wide receiver, who's in coverage. And this is why you always want to go for it. This is why you don't go conservative. Because Cortland Sutton gets interfered with on the play. The refs called defensive pass interference on the Chargers. Now all of a sudden, the Broncos get moved into field goal range because they decided to not get conservative. It sets up Brandon McManus for a 53-yard field goal to win the game. And he nails it as time expires. And the Broncos are able to steal one in regulation. Oh my goodness. It just goes to show you what happens when you don't go conservative. When you play to win the game, look what happens. You win the dang game. It was just a truly beautiful moment for the Broncos. And I think I figured out how to get around their fourth quarter choking. They won't lose as long as they have the ball last, so they can choke any fourth quarter lead they want as long as it's still one possession when they have the ball back. So it was Drew Lock's first start in this one, now speaking to the whole game. And you know what? In the first half, he played pretty well. He was making some really pretty throws. Finished 18 of 28 for 134 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Broncos were up 14-0 in the first half. And things were looking really bad for the Chargers. There was that Ian Rappaport report on the NFL Network early Sunday morning that said if Phillip Rivers continues to play bad in this game, that the Chargers are heavily considering benching him for Tyrod Taylor. And you know what? In the first half, Phillip Rivers was playing really bad. And there were shots of Tyrod Taylor starting to warm up on the sideline, and it just had the feeling of an end of an era was about to happen in this game. But Phillip Rivers was able to get a touchdown pass right before halftime, and it felt like it kept the Wolves at bay for a minute. And they go into halftime. They're only down by, 4 points? I think it was like 14-10 at the half. Thing about Broncos is they're going into the second half with the lead. You just know they're going to choke it away. Phillip Rivers' final stat line, it doesn't look like he struggled in this final stat line. Finished 20 of 29 for 265 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 3 sacks. That doesn't sound like a guy who was about to be benched for Tyrod Taylor, but if you watch this game in the first half, you would have a different opinion. Mike Williams, their wide receiver, finished 5 catches, 117 yards. It was just a very odd game. Because then, as soon as the second half started, the Broncos got conservative. They're playing scared like they always do. And the Chargers found a way to get back into it. And they tied the game, and then they just found a new way to lose. It's the Chargers' MO. They're just going to find new, painful ways to lose every single week. I'm curious as to what they'll do next week. Are they going to get a safety called on them in the final 30 seconds to lose the game? Is that what's going to happen? Good for the Broncos. I think Drew Lock made, like I said, he made some really pretty throws in the first half. And they found a way to win. Like I said, this is what happens when you don't go conservative, when you play aggressive. It can be very rewarding at times. And this was very rewarding. It won them the game. And for the Chargers, man, I just don't know how people are fans of this team. It feels like every other week they are just finding new ways to lose these games. And you know it's coming, because if you go back and scroll through any Twitter timeline right as the fourth quarter started, everybody's cracking jokes. Oh, how are the Chargers going to blow this one? How are they going to invent a new way to lose? And then when it happens, everybody's stunned. I can't believe they just did that. I've never seen a game end like this. It's rough being a Chargers fan. And if you know one in your life, give them a hug, because they're not doing well right now. Once again, Denver wins this one 23-20, and we're moving on to another blowout. Yippee. Oakland at Kansas City. Kansas City wins this one 40-9. Oh, that's not fun. Kansas City improves to 8-4 on the year. They've won 2 straight. And Oakland falls to 6-6, and they've lost 2 straight. And we need to talk about Oakland. Kansas City wins a one-sided affair. Yeah, it was one-sided. As Oakland just flat out no-shows a big game. That's just putting it as bluntly as you can. They just flat out no-showed. The Raiders just kept shooting themselves in the foot in the first half. Throughout the whole game, they had 12 penalties for 98 yards, 2 interceptions. One of those was a pick six. Just on top of a very flat performance. They even struggled in the red zone. They went 1 for 3 in the red zone. They were just flat, man. There's no other way getting around it. These last 2 weeks where they didn't play well against the Bengals and Jets, people were arguing, they're just looking ahead on their schedule. They're just way too focused on Kansas City, and they'll show up for this game. Division was kind of on the line in this one, but you wouldn't be able to know that from watching how the Raiders played. If they had won this game, they could have made some serious ground for a potential division win. And there was no energy. There was no nothing. I don't understand what's going on with this Raiders team right now. They just feel flat as all get out. And, it wasn't the cleanest game possible. It was very cold weather in this one. There was a lot of wind whipping around, and it impacted both teams. Patrick Mahomes didn't have his best day either. Mahomes finished 15-29 for 175 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 sack. But they found a way to win. Derek Carr finished 20-30 for 222 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Like I said, 2 sacks. It was just a blowout, and they were just flat. There's no other way of saying it. In fact, what's really weird is that, the Raiders had 12 penalties in this one. The Chiefs had none. This was the first time the Chiefs were not penalized in a game since December 8th of 1974. Yeah, how about that for a nugget, huh? Yeah. All credit to the Chiefs. They played like they actually wanted it. Like, this was a big time division game in a major time slot with a lot on the line, and they played like it. The Raiders just simply did not. I mean, look at the Bengals game, look at the Jets game, look at this game. Where did that young plucky Raiders team that was looking to set the league on fire go? It just felt like they just no-showed these last 3 weeks, and I don't know what's wrong with the Raiders. I really don't. And you know what? I'm ready to put a fork in the Raiders now. It was one thing when you have a sloppy performance against the Bengals. I'm willing to write off one bad week. Then you did it again against the Jets in a blowout loss. Then you did it again in a game you absolutely had to have against the Chiefs in a blowout loss. This Raiders team is done. They're 6-6. I don't suddenly see them just flipping the switch and suddenly being good to go again. I just don't see it, because they're showing you right now that they just seem uninterested for whatever reason. We were praising coaching, a couple weeks ago at how they just seem, ready for anything, but they're coming out flat these last 3 weeks, and that directly reflects on coaching, in my opinion. I've said that all year long, and I'm saying it now against the Raiders. They're just not good right now. They're very bad. Once again, Chiefs win this one 40-9, and put a fork in the Raiders. They're done at 6-6. They're not doing anything now. They're done. Moving on to Sunday Night Football. It was a fun one. Well, okay, not really a fun one. We'll get into that. New England at Houston. Houston wins 28-22, and a big time win for them. Houston improves to 8-4, have won 2 straight. New England falls to 10-2, and snaps a 2-game winning streak for them. Like I just said, Houston gets a massive win on Sunday Night Football, and maybe the Patriots aren't as good as we thought they were. So, if you didn't watch Sunday Night Football and you're just looking at the stats and the scores, you're thinking, oh wow, what a close game. Houston only won by 6. Wow, that must have been a down-to-the-wire thriller. This is one of those instances where the final score doesn't reflect what the game was. Here's why. For the vast majority of this game, it was all Houston. All Houston. The Patriots defense had no answer for Deshaun Watson, and the Patriots offense just couldn't get going at all. You know why? It was 28-9 halfway through the fourth quarter in favor of the Texans. 28-9. They had a 19-point lead halfway through the fourth quarter. That's how one-sided this game was at times. And you know what? It was just such an odd game because you look at the stats. The Patriots dominated almost every single stat. Time of possession, total yards. New England had 448 total yards. Houston had 276. It was crazy. The rush yards, pass yards, time of possession, etc., etc. You name it, the Patriots had a definitive edge in that statistical category. But if you watch that game, you did not get that feeling at all. You watch that game and you see Houston kicking the Patriots up and down the field. I think it really started because, the Patriots offense just couldn't get anything going at all. The receivers were struggling to get open. Brady was under constant pressure the entire night. I think Brady was only sacked once, if I remember correctly. Oh, I'm sorry, 3 times. He was sacked 3 times. It felt like he was getting hit a lot more than that. And they just couldn't get anything going. And in all brutal honesty, the Patriots only got back into this game because the Texans took their foot off the gas. They're up 28-9. They got 19-point lead in the fourth quarter. Of course they took their foot off the gas. That allowed the Patriots to creep back in and make things a little uncomfortable. But, is the Patriots offense that bad that they can only get going when a team stops trying? Is it really become that bad? Romeo Crennel, the Texans defensive coordinator, was cooking up some great stuff. Had the Patriots just out of sync the entire night. And, man, this Texans defense isn't good. Let me state that clearly. Specifically, their secondary, which is why I expected maybe the Patriots would look better in this game. But they didn't. They looked even worse. And I'm really starting to get worried about this Patriots offense. They're not good. In fact, I would even argue they're not even average. They're that bad on offense. And there are numbers that back that up. I mean, for crying out loud, that Tom Brady these last couple weeks has put up similar numbers to Mitchell Trubisky from the Bears. Think about that for a minute and really let that sink in. That Tom Brady, the quarterback of a 10-2 football team, is putting up the same numbers as Mitchell Trubisky, the guy everybody, including me, who is killing every single week for how bad he plays. Tom Brady does it and nobody said a word. Because we don't want to get burned again for saying he's done. I'm saying is that this Patriots offense is terrible. And it was one thing when it was October and November and they were bad. It's after the first weekend of December and they're still not good. In fact, it feels like they're regressing, which is really bad. But it's not just their offense. And when their offense, plays badly and can't get anything going and leaves their defense on the field to get exposed, it's a nightmare situation for New England, which is what happened in this game. New England's supposedly great defense looked pedestrian. I mean, Deshaun Watson had 4 total touchdowns. 3 passing. He had 1 receiving touchdown, for crying out loud, on that weird option trick play that they ran in the fourth quarter. So don't sit there and tell me that this team is invincible and invulnerable. They just got embarrassed on Sunday Night Football by the Houston Texans, a team that had only ever beat them once in like 20 years. This is not good. This is very, very, very bad for the Pats. Deshaun Watson finished 18 of 25 for 234 yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 sacks. Really good night for Deshaun. Tom Brady finished 24 of 47 for 326 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, 3 sacks. The vast majority of that damage was done in the fourth quarter, when the game was way out of hand, when it was already way over, when the Texans defense stopped trying. Julian Edelman, 6 catches, 106 yards, and a touchdown. I think we can start talking about the Patriots as no longer a guarantee to make the Super Bowl. Because they're just not, man. I don't think that's offensive to them, because normally when people say that, people lose their minds and say, oh, how could you say that? They've proven us wrong before. I mean, yeah, they have, but they've never looked this bad. They've never looked this bad. And maybe this is just, an off year. Their wide receivers aren't playing well, their offensive line isn't the best, and Tom Brady's looking old. It's just not their year. And that's okay. They don't have to go to the Super Bowl every single year. Contrary to popular belief. They don't have to. In all honesty, I don't even think the Patriots are a top 5 team. They haven't played like it. I really think there are like 5 other teams in the NFL that are better right now than the Patriots. So what I'm saying is, the Patriots dynasty isn't dead. It's just probably going to take an off year. And that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But all credit in the world to the Texans. They cooked up a great game plan. They kept the Patriots' offense and defense on their heels the entire night and deserve a ton of credit. This was a massive win for the Texans. This shows how good they can be when they're at their peak, that they can beat these other top teams in the AFC when it comes to that. And it helps them to keep a leg up on the AFC South with the Titans nipping at their heels. Like I said earlier, Titans and Texans play twice over the next couple weeks. So it's going to come down to the wire in the AFC South, and it's going to be fun to watch. Once again, Houston wins a massive game, 28-22, on Sunday Night Football. And we're moving on to Monday Night Football. Another fun game. Minnesota at Seattle. Seattle wins this one 37-30. Very back and forth fun game. Seattle improves to 10-2, have won 5 straight. Feeling really great right now. Really great if you're a Seahawks fan right now. And Minnesota falls to 8-4, snaps a 2-game winning streak. This was a very fun back and forth fight between at the time it was 2 of the wild card teams. Not anymore after the end of the game. So, back and forth first half. Vikings do a touchdown drive, then the Seahawks do a touchdown drive. Then there was that crazy pick six where the ball gets tipped into the air. Russell Wilson tries to swat it back down, gets caught by a Vikings defender. He runs it back in. Vikings are leading 17-10 at the half in a very fun, competitive first half. And it's like, all right, this game's fun. It was really fun. And it was back and forth, yada, yada, yada. And then the second half started, and then things changed completely. Seattle goes on an absolutely massive scoring run in the second half. They outscore the Vikings 27-13 in the second half. 27-13. That includes a 17-0 run in the third quarter. 17-0. There was that big David Moore 60-yard touchdown for the Seahawks at the end of the third quarter with like 10 seconds left. Game felt over, in my opinion. It did. It just felt completely over. Just based off of history of Kirk Cousins and the Minnesota Vikings in big moments and big games. It was on the road against a really good team. You're now down double digits going into the fourth quarter. Dalvin Cook isn't in the game. He left early with an injury. One of your offensive linemen left early with an injury. It just felt like a recipe of, the Vikings are going to curl up into a ball and take a beating. Because that's what we've seen them do over the years, and that's what we've seen Kirk Cousins do to a lesser degree over the years. But you know what they didn't do? They didn't curl up into a ball and take a beating. I was really impressed that the Vikings offense came out and was able to put up more points. They outscored the Seahawks 13-10 in the fourth quarter. I was really impressed with the Vikings that they kept pushing and kept trying. Because that's not what we've seen from them over the past, or Kirk Cousins. I was very, very impressed with the Vikings. They were able to drive down, kick a field goal, drop it to I think it was like a 4-point lead. Late in the fourth quarter, they just never got the ball back, and they couldn't make anything go with it. The reason why the Vikings lost this game, it feels lazy, and it feels like such a lazy narrative because you see other people doing it. You got people on ESPN. I've heard it across all social medias. I've even seen beat writers do it, and it's such a lazy narrative. They're just saying, oh, Kirk Cousins once again comes up short on Monday Night Football. If you watch this game and your takeaway is Kirk Cousins is the reason why they lost, you're not watching football and you have no idea what you're talking about. Kirk Cousins is not the reason why this Vikings defense couldn't stop anybody. Kirk Cousins isn't the reason why Dalvin Cook fumbled the ball twice. Kirk Cousins isn't the reason why their defense gave up 458 total yards. Kirk Cousins isn't the reason why they gave up 218 rushing yards. In fact, Kirk Cousins and Russell Wilson put up almost identical stat lines. All right, you ready? Russell Wilson, 21-31 for 240 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 2 sacks. People have been nonstop praising him this morning. Are you ready for Kirk Cousins? 22-38 for 276 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Virtually identical. And people are going to come out and say, Kirk Cousins is the reason why they lost this football game. That is such a lazy narrative. And people just not actually watching football. They lost because their defense was terrible. And that it's kind of been below average for the last couple weeks. That's why the Vikings lost. Not because of Kirk Cousins. In fact, they were really only in this game and had a chance to win because of Kirk Cousins. Don't get it twisted. Speaking of that unstoppable run game, Chris Carson, Seattle running back, 23 rush yards for 103 yards and a rushing touchdown. It felt like, the Vikings had people dropping left and right. Dalvin Cook left early with a clavicle injury. There's talk that he maybe might not play next week, which would be a big blow. One of I think it was their tackles left early with a concussion. He didn't come back. There was a period where Stephon Diggs wasn't in the game for a while, but he came back and played. Just a lot of injuries for the Vikings to overcome. But, Seattle found a way to win. It was a big primetime game that they really, I don't say needed to have, but it really helped them out in terms of playoff standings. Because here's the thing. Unlike the Eagles, the Seahawks were gifted with a golden egg from the sky, and they made the most of it. They made some scrambled eggs with it. They had a big win in Monday Night Football, and the ramifications for it are pretty massive. Because San Francisco lost early Sunday, San Francisco is no longer the number 1 seed in the NFC playoffs. The number 1 seed is currently New Orleans. You know who the number 2 seed is? The Seattle Seahawks, who are currently the division leaders of the NFC West, because they have that tie-breaking win over the 49ers now. You know where the 49ers are now? They're in the wild card spot. They're the number 5 seed. If the season ended right now, the San Francisco 49ers would have to go on the road, wild card weekend, to presumably play whichever team is unlucky enough to win the NFC East. Oh, how quickly things can change in the NFL. So this game was absolutely massive for playoff implications. And as of right now, the Vikings are still in that second wild card at 8-4. Their only real competition is the Rams with a game behind them. But I still think the Vikings are the best team in the NFC North. I still think they're in good position, even with a tough schedule remaining, to win their division. Both teams really could have used this win, but it doesn't kill either team if they had lost, in my opinion. But the Seahawks get a big win on Monday Night Football, looked really good. Vikings defense is not good right now, but I gained a lot of respect for Kirk Cousins in that Vikings offense. If you hear somebody say they lost this game because of Kirk Cousins, you need to check them, because they're crazy. They don't know what they're talking about, and they're not watching football. Once again, Seahawks win 37-30 and are currently the 2nd seed in the NFC playoff picture. So that's it for our recap portion. We're going to get into Thursday Night Football really quick here. Got a kind of a big game coming up on Thursday Night Football. You got the 6-6 Dallas Cowboys, who have lost 2 straight, and everything is on fire in Arlington, Texas for them. Going to Chicago to take on the 6-6 Bears, who have won 2 straight. So, like I just said, everything is on fire for the Dallas Cowboys right now. It's that meme you see on the internets where that dog is sitting in a house full of fire and he says everything's fine while everything's on fire around him. That's what the Cowboys are right now. They want to tell you things are fine. Things are not fine. Things are very bad for Dallas. Every statistical measurement says the Cowboys' offense is good. They haven't played good the last 2 weeks. In fact, the last 2 weeks they're averaging 12 points per game. That's really, really bad. Like, bottom of the league. Bad. And the Cowboys' defense isn't good. I don't care what stats and figures say. From what I've watched, they haven't been good. They struggle to stop the run. Well, the good news is they're playing a team that doesn't like to run the football, in the Bears, who are pretty one-dimensional around Mitchell Trubisky. But the bad news for the Cowboys is they're going up against the Bears' defense that is still really good. The Bears are averaging giving up 17.3 points per game. That's 4th best in the NFL. And you're having to go on the road. It's Thursday night. It's probably going to be pretty cold in Chicago. I don't know how to break that news to everybody, but Chicago in December is probably very cold. I don't know if it's going to rain or snow, but it might be a long night for the Cowboys. Mitchell Trubisky is probably going to have to make some big boy throws in this one outside of the third quarter. Because, like we talked about before, the Bears have one of the better third quarter scoring offenses. He's going to have to make some throws in the first and second and even fourth quarter to help the Bears get a win. I don't know. Part of me wants to say the Bears should win this game, but I just can't trust Mr. Trubisky. I just can't. Everything they've shown me from both teams, I just can't trust Trubisky. The Cowboys need to act like they want to win, because so far they haven't. They haven't beat a team with a winning record all season long, and right now they're playing a team that's at 500, so that doesn't really qualify. So maybe they can win the game. Maybe. If the Bears were like 7-5, this would be a completely different story. But the Cowboys need to act like they want it, because they sure didn't act like it at Thanksgiving. They sure didn't act like it against New England. Act like you want to win. Act like your coach is about to get fired and you give a damn. Because you certainly don't seem like it. I have a feeling that, every week we're going to sit here and talk about the NFC East and say, oh, it's this team's division to lose now. It's this team's division to lose now. It feels like every week the Cowboys and Eagles are trading off who wants it less. I wouldn't be stunned if we come in Friday morning and, the Cowboys blow another game and then the Eagles blow a game on Sunday. It's just what the NFC East is this year. I'm going to take Dallas to win, though. I don't feel good about it. I really don't, but I just can't trust Mitchell Trubisky. I just can't. And that's how it is. All right, so that's it for our Tuesday show. Next time we talk, it will be Friday, where we'll recap this game we just previewed. Yippee! Should be fun. And then we'll preview all the rest of the games of Week 14, which includes a massive showdown between the 49ers and Saints in the 1 o'clock window, and then also Baltimore at Buffalo at 1 o'clock as well. So a lot of good games this weekend. So make sure to tune in for that this Friday. All right. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you Friday. Bye.